So we're back with another Perils in Paradise card review, and we got a crazy card in this one, a few other neutrals to talk about as well, but let's kick it off here with Patches the Pilot, a new legendary for Demon Hunter that I think is probably going to be pretty insane. He is a 1-mana 1/1 demon and pirate with battle cry. Shuffle 6 parachutes into your deck that summon a 1/1 pirate with charge when drawn. And you can see there the parachutes cast when drawn spell. And also keep in mind, this is going to be playable in Shaman if you use the tourist card in Shaman that lets you visit Demon Hunter and thereby run Demon Hunter cards from this expansion in your Shaman decks. And I think, although Patches the Pilot has some potential specific synergies with stuff like pirate decks, I think this is just kind of a good general use case card. So as long as that tourist card for Shaman's not absolute garbage somehow, I think this could be a reason to run the tourist card as well, because Patches might just be so good, especially ironically enough when played on turn 1. In the past, you hated hitting Patches in your opening hand, and now you will love hitting Patches in your opening hand, because certainly the sooner you shuffle these parachutes in, the more likely they are to give you a nice return on that investment. But the good news is with Patches, you're still getting a 1/1 body down early. Clearly not the best play these days. There's a lot of 1/3s and stuff we play on 1-drops, 2/2s, etc. But the potential upside here is pretty good for Patches. And you don't even necessarily have to go super late into a game to realize this potential. Basically, on turn 1, let's just use some really simple math. Your deck's about 25 cards at that stage. You're shuffling 6 parachutes in. That's about 1/4 of your deck will be parachutes. So any given draw, you're gonna have about a 1 in 4 chance until you hit that first parachute, which that means very often you'll have a bonus pirate down turn 3, turn 4, that sort of thing. You on average will get a pirate, and sometimes you'll just get 3 pirates immediately. Turn 2, you'll open up and you'll get 3 in a row because you're super lucky. And those games, you're probably just going to snowball and run away with it, because that's just going to be a ton of early tempo and a little bit of chip damage as well. And then you still have that potential later to get all those bodies too. And because these have charge, that's sometimes going to be that chip damage to face. Other times that's just going to help you clean up minions, basically serving as a ping or something to help you deal a little bit better with your opponent's board. There are also, I'm sure, going to be some pirate synergies explored. We saw that pirates is going to be one of the themes of this expansion. So these in some cases might get bonus attack or bonus stats somehow from pirates. I mean, obviously you can already do that in Hearthstone a little bit. We got the 1-drop pirate guy that's so good that gives plus attack. Where's that guy at? Here he is, the treasure distributor, right? After you summon a pirate, give it and this minion +1 attack. You start hitting some parachutes off your treasure distributor, that charge damage is going to start incrementing even more. On top of that, I think there's actually a secondary angle for this card, because these are cast when drawn cards. As I recall, with the old Demon Hunter quest line, anytime you had a cast when drawn card, it would increment that quest line basically 2 times, because you would draw the parachute, that counts as a draw, and then the next card would also get drawn off the cast when drawn. That's a keyword that draws you the next thing. So you'd get 2 draws basically for the price of 1. And don't forget that Demon Hunter still has some cards that care about that sort of effect. There's the Argonite Golem here. There's the Mindbender. These care about how many cards you draw in a given turn. So when you're shuffling cast when drawn spells into your deck, if you hit these, they might give you a little bit of bonus here and there, or you could try to go for something like Crazy Pop Off where you have multiples of these. Keep in mind in Shaman as well, there are triple battle cry effects, so you could shutter block your Patches and put 18 parachutes into your deck. It might be too late in the game to really make an impact, but maybe not. There'd be so many, it'd be so dense that you might hit 2 or 3 per turn on average or something, because you just have so many parachutes near the end of the game. So, I mean, listen, when this goes down on turn 1, it's, sometimes it may feel like it's not all that impactful. You might not draw your first one until turn 5 or 6 or something, and maybe it didn't feel like it was super worth it, but there will be other instances where it just completely runs away with the game, because it's just so much early tempo and free bonus stats that I think stealing a game here and there is going to be worth running just an okay card the rest of the time, you know. But as soon as you start to get to that second or third pirate summoned, Patches starts to realize a lot of potential upside. Any decks that utilize like buffs as well can be extra spicy. You know, if Shaman has some way to buff the stats of these, you know, you summon 3 pirates with charge, and then you do a big board buff or whatever, like boom, okay, that's a bonus way to get some extra crazy damage out of these, because that charge can become threatening in those instances. So just a lot of different ways to slice this and benefit from it, between the cast when drawn, between the pirate stuff, between the charge damage being threatening. But even without those, it's just a big pile of stats and bodies. So I actually think Patches looks really good. I have to imagine pretty much all Demon Hunter decks are just sort of running this because it's just free. And then there might even be some Shaman decks too that just run it because it's free. And by free, I mean it's just like a good card that does a lot of stuff. It's so cheap to weave in. And yes, bad when drawn late, but so strong when drawn and played early that probably makes up for it. So to me, Patches just looks really, really good. So next up here, this is a really cool card. This is Mixologist, a 3-mana 2/3 Battlecry craft a custom 1-cost potion. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's what the original Kazakis did from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. Now for him, you got to choose the cost. You could pick a 1, a 5, or a 10. In this case, you're limited to the 1 cost, but you still get to pick the choices for what the potion does. And I'm told it's this list right here, which are the exact same as what the original Kazakis back then did as well. So these are pretty good, for the record. For a 1-cost card, you know, these are really nice effects. Deal 3 and summon a 2/2. Like, okay, yeah, that's not bad at all for a 1-cost card. Resurrect a friendly minion could be kind of insane. Just freezing sometimes is good. You know, drawing card is awesome. So I think on average, you're going to be pretty happy with the results of these. There are both offensive and defensive options, board-based options, reactive options. You got some good stuff to choose from. That probably means you're going to have a good hit. And I remember in the past with the original Kazakis too, like often thinking the 1-cost spells were like surprisingly good. But in that time and era, and the decks that were playing that Kazakis often went for the bigger, crazier stuff, because it was, you know, the Reno decks. They were often a little bit slower, more late game oriented. And Kazakis himself cost 4 and had the Reno restriction on him, the no duplicate restriction. So it felt like you often wanted to get a little bit more out of your Kazakis. Sometimes, you know, often finding a 5-cost spell on curve, or just going for that big crazy 10-cost thing. This you won't have that same kind of commitment to. You don't have to build your deck in a Reno way, a Highlander way to succeed there. And you know, it's lower overhead at only a 3-cost card, and frankly only sacrificing 1 attack for that 1 less mana. So ultimately, you know, the fact that you're only getting to choose from 1-cost spells is really not much of a downside. In other words, I think it's still going to offer something really high utility. Also of note, this is another card that's valuing these cheap spells. Every single video I say, hey, look, another synergy for Linessa in Paladin, the new Sunsapper Linessa card. Your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. Again, a custom 1-cost potion going off twice for Linessa is insane. But these are all neutrals. They aren't printing all these neutrals just for Paladin. There has to be some other mechanic coming, or some other legendary or something that's going to support all of these low-cost spells. I can't believe they're printing all of this stuff that's a perfect synergy for only 1 legendary. So I don't know if there's some like sub-theme or design theme going through these, but these 1-cost or low-cost spells seem to have some kind of angle here. I just know something is coming that's gonna like pay these off or be an additional synergy. So I actually think this card's pretty good anyway. I think a lot of Reno decks would happily toss this in. A lot of control decks just get a little body down early, get a spell that has some utility. Anything that's copying or manipulating spells in some way gets an extra boost there too. But just we've seen a lot of these speed bump 3-drop cards that give you something cool to do. And that's exactly what Mixologist does here as well. So I like this one. I think it's pretty good, pretty flexible, pretty high impact for what it is, and also has that low cost spell synergy thing hanging over it that I suspect might get another bonus. So moving on here, we have Package Dealer, a 6-mana 6/7 with after you draw a card, 50% chance to draw another. And this might very well be the worst neutral card, or maybe worst Hearthstone card I've seen printed in years. I just think this has absolutely zero chance to see play. Yes, it is the Boulder Fist Ogre stat line, but this effect is just completely terrible for a 6-cost card. Theoretically, you'd maybe plop this down and then run some kind of effect that's drawing you a bunch of stuff. Gaslight Gatekeeper, whatever thing that's trying to draw you a million cards, and this gives you the chance to occasionally draw some extras. So if you draw 4 cards, and on average this gives you like an extra 2 or whatever. If you draw 6 cards, it gives you an extra 3 on average, whatever, right? But nobody is playing 6 mana, draw 3 that requires you to have already drawn 6. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, if it was just 6 mana, draw 3, it would still be pretty bad. But the fact that you somehow have to already orchestrate the drawing of the 6 to potentially realize the draw 3, it's just awful, right? This is just an enormous overhead for a terrible upside. Cool arena card, I think. Like, this is one of those where it's like, okay, it sticks in arena. Sometimes my start of turn draw, I hit 2 cards instead of 1, and that's a great bonus in arena, and you're probably totally fine with that in arena. I'm sure it's okay-ish in arena, but in standard, there is just like zero chance that this gets played. I think this is the worst card we've seen in a long, long time. And then finally here we have the Octo Masseuse. This is a 4-mana 1/8 mech and beast, and it deals octuple damage to minions. So this is only 1 attack, but if you trade it into a minion, it will deal 8. So this does have the potential to trade up fairly well, and with that nice, healthy health stat line too. Like, this can like clean up a 5/5 or something, no problem, and be left behind. And the opponent tries to trade a 3/3 into it, well, guess what? It still kills the 3/3 as well. So I mean, sure, ideally a way to kind of trade up and deal with your opponent's board, but in reality, this doesn't have rush or anything to like help it take trades immediately. It's just kind of a sitting duck sitting there, and most decks just have to drive a faster game plan and push towards some kind of win condition, and they just don't have space for this. Like, who's gonna run a 4-drop that kind of trades okay into stuff but doesn't actually present any onboard threat itself? It can't help you like in game sooner by hitting the opponent. So this is just like clever and funny and good flavor and everything, but not a good card. There is one tiny angle for this, like in Wild maybe, which is the Soulbound Ash Tongue, the card that deals damage to your hero when it takes damage. Like, yes, this could do some kind of weird combo, buff the attack on this, give it rush, summon a Soulbound Ash Tongue for them, and hit them for $1 billion. We'll save that for Mark on YouTube to pull off. I'm sure he will, but for the rest of us, for mere mortals playing standard Hearthstone, I just think this has zero chance to get played. It's just not the kind of card we see in competitive decks. All right, so that said, let's do some quick reviews. Patches the Pilot is a 5-star card. Mixologist is a 4-star card. Package Dealer is a 1-star card. Octo Masseuse is a 1-star card. And there you go. Quite a mixed bag here. We got a 5 and a 4 and a pair of 1s. But, some of these neutral cards, it's fine. We expect a lot of neutral cards to not get played. These are both probably pretty interesting in Arena again, though. That, it's fine for these cards to exist. Just not stuff we rate well for constructed standard Hearthstone. That said, I think Mixologist has a pretty good chance, and Patches, to me, looks really good. So, yeah, nice little set today. That said, share your thoughts on these cards down in the comments below. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time, game on.